Jackson Dart is one of the biggest names in football as only a rookie, but it definitely wasn't an easy path to the spotlight. So I'm going to tell you how he got here. Before I start the video, make sure to subscribe and like for more stuff like this, but anyways, let's get into it. Jackson was born in Kaysville, Utah, and was raised a Mormon and the son of Brandon Dart, a former Utah football player who was made aware of his son's talent when he was only in preschool, as he could throw, catch, hit, and shoot the ball in a way that you'd expect from a kid that was years older. He came from a family of athletes, but the family never had a quarterback until after the other kids on Jackson's Little League team were struggling at Q, and so Jackson volunteered by saying, "I can do it." Doing that as a kid was an early sign of greatness and propelled him throughout his childhood as he kept getting better year after year. And so going into high school, he was playing like an upperclassman as only a freshman. Somehow Jackson became the starting quarterback at Roy High School when he was only 14 years old. And as his high school coach Fred Fernandez would say, "I could tell right away that he was going to be a special player." Throughout the next few years, Jackson developed as an athlete and a play caller, with the coach telling him in hurry-up situations, "You're the one who's going to be playing on Sundays. You make the call." For any coach, let alone a high school coach, to have that much trust in you as only a 14, 15, 16-year-old is something I've never seen before. And I've made hundreds of these videos, but it goes to show how much belief the team had in Mr. Dart. Jackson was so good that after 3 seasons at Roy High, his coach told him that he needed to transfer to another school for his senior year, especially after all 5 of the school's offensive linemen had graduated and the new kids were more of a run blocking focused, which as you could tell would not be a great situation for a senior quarterback looking to get the attention on the next level. In conversations with his dad Brandon, who was his safeties coach, he encouraged him to transfer his son, telling him, "Jackson deserves to be able to throw it 30, 40 times a game. If we're going to be successful, we won't be able to do that." But even though the decision seemed destined to be made, it wasn't peachy keen for all sides, as his maternal grandfather told Jackson, "You can't do that to Coach Fernandez after all he's done for you." But then Jackson's mother, Cara, responded, "It's what the coach wants. He agrees with this. He wants us to go because it's the best thing for Jackson." Coach Fernandez called Eric Kiar, the head coach and quarterback guru at Corner Canyon High, notifying him that Jackson was coming his way, which goes to show the character of Fernandez, as Corner Canyon was a rival school and he was well aware of Jackson's talent. "I was shocked," says Kiar. "I thought Fernandez would be mad. He was very supportive of him moving on, just for Jackson's benefit. It's pretty admirable that a coach understood that a kid needed more than what he had in his program and had his best interests in mind. We're not usually like that as coaches." Like you heard there, Coach Fernandez was incredibly selfless and supportive of Jackson, who left his family behind and moved from Kaysville to Draper in the middle of his junior year to live with his aunt so that he could work closely with Kiar. Everything about this process was professional on Jackson's part in what I'm sure was a very unpredictable and tough time. And all the while, he's still in high school, you gotta remember. But here's the thing, Kiar ain't no joke, as he sported a 108 record as a head coach, as he had coached at least 10 quarterbacks at Jordan and Corner Canyon High to play D1 football, including Zach Wilson, who's now in the Dolphins, Isaac Wilson at Utah, Devin Brown, who played at Ohio State and Cal, and now Dart. And that doesn't include his current starter, Helaman Kasuga, who is committed to Texas A&M. All that in mind, it's not that much of a shock that quarterbacks all across Utah went to great lengths to be coached by Kiar, with Kasuga transferring to play with him before his junior year, and Brown moving from Arizona before his senior season. Like you can imagine, it was a no-brainer for a talent like Jackson to get coached by one of the best in his last season in high school, especially after, in the 3 years that he was at Roy High, he had not gotten any attention from the next level. But crazy enough, once recruiters were aware that he'd be transferring, he already got a handful of offers, before even stepping on the football field. That just goes to show the reputation Kiar and Corner Canyon High School already had. Interestingly enough, Kiar hadn't seen much of Dart's play, but that winter saw him on a 7-on-7 tournament that his oldest son Noah, who was an all-state receiver, was in, and said about Jackson, "I was shocked by his ability, his arm, touch, timing, and anticipation. I was surprised he hadn't been recruited." But you gotta keep in mind this all happened in the midst of a crazy time with a pandemic, which meant that recruiters couldn't see recruits in person at visits or camps. So they didn't get their first good look at Dart until he was in a nationally televised game that Corner Canyon played against Bingham High, a showdown of massive Utah powerhouses. And in that game, Jackson went off with an impressive 277 yards passing and 6 touchdowns with no picks, along with an additional 110 yards rushing, and a dominant 42-20 win. The next morning, he got 45 offers, says Brandon, and hundreds of texts and calls. But that was only the beginning, as that year, Dart put on a quarterback clinic with 4,691 yards and a state record 67 touchdowns through the year, alongside 1,195 yards rushing, which is insane. And so it was no surprise that he led Corner Canyon to an unbeaten record and a state championship, as he was named to numerous All-American teams and was the Gatorade National Player of the Year, which was nothing short of incredible for a kid who hadn't got a single offer going into the season. And although he was raised as a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints, as you would anticipate, Jackson chose not to go on a mission and instead take his talents to the next level. Despite getting an offer from ASU following off-season training with former ASU quarterback Taylor Kelly in Tempe, Dart committed to USC, where he was going into a quarterback battle between himself, a local superstar in Miller Moss, who was the presumed next in line, and a 2-year returning starter in Keaton Slovis. Although Keaton ended up winning the starting job, it didn't take long for Jackson to get on the football field, as 4 games into the season, Dart came in to relieve Keaton as a starter, and proceeded to toss for nearly 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, along with 2 picks, despite noticeably limping after a second quarter knee injury. Well, sadly enough, the said injury turned out to be much more than just a day-to-day issue, as Dart underwent surgery to repair his knee, and so he missed the next 4 games, and only ended up playing in 6 games that season for the Trojans. In those games, he passed for 1,353 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 5 picks, as seemingly the apparent starting quarterback for USC for the next few years. But crazy enough, he never played for the team ever again, as following that season, USC hired Oklahoma's Lincoln Riley as their new head coach, who brought along Caleb Williams with him from Oklahoma, who would go on to win the Heisman that year with the Trojans. So all that in mind, a change in scenery for Dart was a no-brainer, and so he hopped into the transfer portal, and along with former USC teammate Michael Trigg, he enrolled at Ole Miss, where Jackson would once again face several challengers for the starting spot, in sophomore Luke Altmaier and Kincaid Dent. But Jackson quickly showed how talented he was that offseason, and so the starting spot was his to lose that year, and he took advantage of that opportunity.
Dart looks left, gonna tuck and run, showing off the speed, Jackson Dart dives in!
As a junior, Jackson put up just under 3,000 yards passing and 20 touchdowns, along with 11 picks through the year, as he led the Rebels to an 8-5 record. But even after a pretty solid first-year performance in Oxford, going into his next season with the team, he faced 2 new challengers for the starting spot, with the arrival of transfer Spencer Sanders, who is a former All-Big 12 quarterback for Oklahoma, and Walker Howard, who is a former 5-star recruit from LSU. Even though the competition was no joke, Jackson had already proven that he could ball, and so he won the starting spot once again in 2023. And not only just that, but he took his game up a notch with just under 3,360 yards passing and 23 touchdowns through the year, with this time only 5 picks, as he led Ole Miss to an impressive 11-2 record and a Peach Bowl win against the nation's best defense in Penn State, as he went up against a future Giants teammate in Abdul Carter on the other side of the ball. Even though he had already proven a lot in his 2 years with the Rebels, in order to further boost his attention from the next level, he returned to Ole Miss for his 3rd year in Oxford, and let's just say it paid off.
Pressure in Dart's face, gets away, falls downfield, caught at the 5 by Trigg!
His stats took another jump the following season as he passed for a career best near 70% completion percentage, along with 4,200 yards and 29 touchdowns through the year, and only 6 picks, as he led the Rebels to a 10-3 record and beat Georgia in what was an impressive but bit underwhelming season, as Ole Miss lost to Florida, LSU, and Kentucky, and so they didn't get an opportunity for a natty. But nonetheless, Jackson had already shown enough as the all-time leading passer for the Rebels to get plenty of attention from the next level, especially a team that was in desperate need of quarterback help in the Big Apple.
With the 25th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Jackson Dart, quarterback, Mississippi.
The New York Football Giants drafted Mr. Dart 25th overall, as he interestingly enough became the second quarterback in the last few years to be drafted in the first round by a New York team who had previously been coached by Kajar, after Zach Wilson went second off the board only a few years before to the Jets. The hope was that Jackson would have a different outcome than the latter, as he joined a very unique quarterback room with the likes of Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Tommy DeVito, which could quite literally be one of the most random mixture of players in NFL history. But anyways, as a first-round pick, Jackson was immediately tossed into the second spot in the depth chart, only behind the aging veteran in Russell Wilson, which is not too bad a spot to be in for a guy like Jackson, especially after Russell had bounced all across the league the past few seasons. And not only just that, but Jackson was a part of the class with the talented Abdul Carter on the defensive side, and the one, the only, Mr. Cameron Scadaboo.
It's it off to Scadaboo, big hole, Scadaboo, Scadaboo!
Jackson and Cameron seemed destined to be a 1-2 creatine combo for the ages. So once Cam started doing his thing a few weeks into the season, it was only a matter of time before Jackson would get his opportunity under the spotlight. And it came against the Chargers.
For that, here's a run again by Dart, 1st and 10, he'll take it in! His first career touchdown!
Jackson showed out in his debut against what was an undefeated Chargers team, as he helped New York get their first win of the season with just over 110 passing yards and a pretty solid rushing touchdown, as Jackson, Cam, and the rest of the Giants beat LA 20-17, birthing the creatine Caucasian legacy in the Big Apple. So although they lost in surprising fashion in New Orleans, Jackson and Cam got right back in the swing of things against the defending Nationals champ and division rival Philadelphia Eagles, as frankly they beat the hell out of them, with great play by both the creatine Caucasians, as they had one of the biggest wins in the last few years for New York.
He might have to, but no, he finds an open man and hits him. Robinson stays in that. Robinson's going to go all the way.
Crazy enough, Jackson has already made history, as he joined good old Patrick Mahomes as the only quarterbacks to lead their team to an opening drive touchdown in each of their first 3 career starts since 1991. If Jackson was Anakin at Ole Miss, he sure as hell has become Darth Vader in New York, playing with a vengeance and a desire to win football games no matter what it takes, as him and Scatterboo have established a new culture in the Big Apple, one of dominance and pure insanity that has only just begun. So sit back and watch the show.
Dart, he can run. Can he ever? He can run all the way to the end zone. Touchdown.
Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe and like for more stuff like this, and if not, then don't. But anyways, see you all soon, and God bless.